بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم الحمد لله رب العالمين والصلاة والسلام على أشرف الأنبياء والمرسلين نبينا محمد وعلى آله وصحبه أجمعين أما بعد إن شاء الله الدرس السادس عشر 16th lesson from الدروس المهمة لعامة الأمة, important lessons for every Muslim. In this chapter, التأدب بالآداب الإسلامية. This chapter is discussing specific Islamic manners, some specific Islamic manners. As the last chapter was general, it's a little more general. Being truthful, being honest, carrying out, keeping your contract, keeping your word. But this chapter here is a little more specific. What is called al-adab al-islamiyya, Islamic etiquette or Islamic morals. So Shaykh bin Baz rahimahullah, he says, قال رحمه الله الدرس السادس عشر التأدب بالآداب الإسلامية التأدب بالآداب الإسلامية ومنها السلام والبشاشة والأكل باليمين والشرب بها إلى آخره. He starts off and he mentions a list of basic Islamic manners. And the first one he says, وَمِنْهَا السَّلَامِ. So in the Sharh, the Shaykh Abdul Razak, he says, الشريعة الإسلامية شريعة الأدب الكامل. That Islam has come with the complete system of adab, manners, to show us how to behave in every situation. And he's not going to mention every single mannerism that it is to be mentioned in this chapter, but he's going to mention some of the basic important ones that we might use day to day on a daily basis. And there are many. He says, والشيخ رحمه الله أشار في هذا المختصر إلى جملة من هذه الآداب مراعيا الاختصار. So what he did was, in the text of the book, he just mentioned in summary, briefly, some of the manners that every Muslim should carry himself or herself with. He said, keeping in mind that the book itself is a summarized book. It's not an extensive, super detailed book. So being as though it's not, he didn't mention all of them, and some of them he didn't go into as much detail as others. So he says, firstly, وَمِنْهَا قَالَ رَحِمَهُ اللَّهُ وَمِنْهَا السَّلَامِ. The first Islamic form of adab that he mentions is the salam. Telling someone assalamu alaikum when you see a Muslim. He said, بِإِشْفَائِهِ, by spreading the salam. Meaning, you see a Muslim, whether you know him or you don't know him, whether you know her or you don't know her, that we extend the salam, assalamu alaikum, at the least. And if we add on top of that, assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullah, as it comes in the hadith, then is more reward, assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullah wa barakatuh, then the person has got 30 rewards, inshallah. The longer, the more reward. But at least the spreading of the salam, and this is basic, and this is something that, at least in here, we have a problem with in this city. We got a problem. We don't even... Basic. This is basic. He says, قَدْ قَالَ صَلَى اللَّهُ عَلَيْهِ وَسَلَّمَ. The Prophet sallallahu alayhi wasallam. And this should be an encouragement for us. That if we see a Muslim, it's simple. Assalamu alaikum. We don't have to, be best friends, hang out. We don't have to go get nothing to eat. Basic salam. The Prophet ﷺ said, لا تدخلون الجنة حتى تؤمنوا. The Prophet ﷺ said that you all will not enter paradise until you believe. You will not enter paradise until you believe. And then he says, sallallahu alayhi wa sallam, وَلَا تُؤْمِنُوا حَتَّى تَحَابُّوا. And you will not believe until you love one another. You won't believe until you love one another. You love one another. So firstly, you can't enter the paradise until you believe. Like, you will not believe until tahabu, until you love one another. And then he said, أَوَلَا أَدُلُّكُمْ عَلَى شَيْءٍ إِذَا فَعَلْتُمُوهُ تَحَابَبْتُمْ. He said, do you want me to tell you something that if you do this thing, that you all will love one another? He said, أَفْشُوا السَّلَامَ بَيْنَكُمْ. Spread the salam between each other. Salam. Spread the greetings. When you see a Muslim, that you give them the greeting. Not that every Muslim that we see, we doubt if they're really Muslim or not. We only make the hukum al-dhahir. What's apparent. Somebody gives us the greeting, we give return the salams. Somebody gives us the salam, it's obligatory to return the salam. Wajib. Returning the salam is wajib. Obligatory. But the Prophet ﷺ said that this is something that will spread love. Because sometimes we just look at people, sajda mark. They can have a kufi on, she can have on the khimar, she can have a niqab, they can have all of the stuff on, pointing, showing that the person is a Muslim, and we'll walk right by each other. Like we don't even see one another. Brother got henna in his beard, lihya, or some type of distinguishing mark that we know only a Muslim would have that characteristic, and we'll walk right past each other like we don't even see each other. And then we go to the next person who may not be, or who may not have that right. They're not Muslim, and we show the utmost respect, and we show love pouring out our hearts, and we walk past each other like we don't exist. The Prophet ﷺ said, none of you will enter paradise until you believe, and none of you will believe until you love one another. Should I not tell you something that if you do it, it'll cause you to love one another? He said, أَفْشُوا السَّلَامَ بَيْنَكُمْ. Spread the salam between one another. And then Shaykh Abdul Razak says, وَكَمْ فِي إِشْفَاءِ السَّلَامِ بَيْنَ الْمُسْلِمِينَ مِنَ الْأَثَارِ الْعَظِيمَ. How much benefit do we see from the love that it builds just by sending the salam? A person you don't know from a can of paint. The fact that we say Assalamu alaikum wa alaikum salam, it opens the door, it breaks the ice. And it's an icebreaker at the least. At the least it's an icebreaker to open the door for more conversation and further on loving one another lillah, for the sake of Allah Jalla wa Ala. So that's the first thing he mentioned, basic, that we say every day, Assalamu alaikum. And there's other ahadith showing the virtue of the salam, of saying Assalamu alaikum to a passing Muslim, or who should give the salam first, the Muslim that's standing or the Muslim that's sitting, or who should give the salam first, the Muslim that's walking by or the Muslim that's already seated in his spot, or should the single person give salam to the group, or does the group have to? There's a bunch of ahadith connected to the virtue and the benefit of saying Assalamu alaikum. So that's the first one. The second one, he says, قال رحمه الله البشاشة بأن يلقى المسلم أخاه بالوجه الطليق. And this one is, at least here in Philadelphia, we got another problem. It's another problem. It's a problem. It's a mushkila in there. To greet each other with a cheerful face. Cheerful, delight, happy to see somebody. We don't, it's like we can't soften up a little bit. We still living by, if you smile and you're soft, that type of mentality. When Islam teaches us, we can't stick on that if Islam says otherwise. If Allah and His Messenger taught us other than that, then we have to act on the revelation. We can't live by those rules. How? بأن يلقى المسلم أخاه بالوجه الطليق, that a Muslim greets his brother or his sister or her sister with a cheerful face. Smiles. Sometimes we see those shirts that says smile is sunnah and all that kind of stuff. It's one thing to know the hadith or to know the ayat, but it's another thing to implement it. Because most people know smiling is sadaqah, right? Smiling in your brother's face is sadaqah. But a lot of us don't know how to implement the hadith. We got stone, rock faces all the time. After the salat, before the salat. except for those who Allah has mercy on. So, Shaykh Abdul Razak says, وَلَا يَحْقِرَ الْمُسْلِمْ مِنَ الْمَعْرُوفِ شَيْئًا. That, as it comes in the hadith, it's a hadith that the Prophet ﷺ said, أنه قال لا تحقرن من المعروف شيئا ولو أن تلقى أخاك بوجه طلق. The Prophet ﷺ said, this hadith is in Sahih Muslim, he said, don't belittle any form of goodness. Don't look down and think it's a small thing. Don't belittle any form of goodness. Don't consider it something small. Anything that's a form of goodness, the Prophet ﷺ said, don't consider it small. Don't look down on it. He said, even if وَلَوْ أَن تَلْقَى أَخَاكَ بِوَجْهٍ طَلْقٍ. Even if it was that goodness is that you just greet your brother or your sister with a cheerful face. Delightful, happy to see the believers. The Prophet ﷺ said, don't look at this as something small, because we take things and that's, it's not a big deal like that. That ain't about nothing. It's not a big deal, but if we look at it like that, we can't implement the sunnah of the Prophet ﷺ. As the hadith says, you won't enter paradise until you love one another. And you won't love one another. You won't enter paradise until you believe. And you won't believe until you love one another. Then he said, I'll tell you something that'll make you love one another. Spread the salam. In another hadith, it said that the salam itself, from the haqq or the ayat, that rad, returning the salam is obligatory. And here, something small, smiling, that we meet each other and that we have a delightful face, happy to see one another, happy that the brother that you don't know from a can of paint believes in Allah and His Messenger, alayhi salatu wasalam. Doesn't make shirk with Allah. We don't assume all the Muslims make shirk. The assumption is not that the Muslim that you meet in the street that you don't know from a can of paint commits shirk. That's not the Muslim is a person of tawheed. So, on the dhahir, we should be happy. We see a person of tawheed. The only time we really do this, and Allah Alam, is when we like far out there where there's no Muslims. You get caught out there in one of those counties where there's no Muslims out there. You think you're the only Muslim, and then you come across a brother and they look at you, and then we happy to see one another because Allah musta'an. But we see people every day now, in and out, and it's hard to smile. We act like it's Allah musta'an. So the Prophet ﷺ said, don't belittle any form of goodness, even if it's that you're just smiling. You smile in the face of your brother. Then he says, Numbers 3 through 6, 3, 4, 5, and 6. He mentions 4 together. And these are from adab al-akl. Adab, manners, or we say table manners of eating. So he says, rahimahullah, al-aklu bil-yamin, number 1, to eat with the right hand. Wa-shurbu biha, and to drink with the right hand. Wa-tasmiyatu inda al-ibtida', and saying bismillah before we eat. Wal-hamdu inda al-faragh, and praising Allah after we finish eating. And all of these are from what we would call or consider table manners. The same way we say, don't put your elbows on the table. And they used to have those classes where the fork goes here. Islam also has manners that the Prophet ﷺ taught us. Tayyib. So from the first things he mentions is to eat with the right hand. فَلَا يَأْكُلُ الْمُسْلِمُ وَلَا يَشْرَبْ إِلَّا بِيَمِينِهِ, that the Muslim should not eat or drink except with his right hand. Why? When the Nabi ﷺ naha an dhalik, because the Prophet ﷺ, he prohibited us from eating or drinking with the left hand. That we shouldn't be drinking with the left hand. He prohibited us from drinking with the left hand. أخبر أنه, as it comes in the hadith, and the hadith is in Sahih Muslim, and Ibn Umar radiyallahu anhuma, that the Prophet ﷺ said, inna الشَّيْطَانَ يَأْكُلُ بِشِمَالِهِ, He said that indeed the shaitan eats with his left hand. The shaitan eats with his left hand. And then the Prophet ﷺ said, وَيَشْرَبُ بِشِمَالِهِ, and he drinks with his left hand. And the hadith is in Sahih Muslim, which is the second most authentic book of hadith after Sahih al-Bukhari. Sahih Muslim, the famous collection. So the Prophet ﷺ says in this hadith, الشَّيْطَانَ يَأْكُلُ بِشِمَالِهِ, he eats with his left hand, وَيَشْرَبُ بِشِمَالِهِ, and he drinks with his left hand. And the hadith is in Sahih Muslim. So he says, Shaykh Abdul Razak, وَمَنْ يَأْكُلُ بِشِمَالِهِ, so the person who eats with their left hand, فَهُوَ مُتَشَبِّهٌ بِالشَّيْطَانِ, they have resembled the shaitan, the devil. They have taken on a trait from the traits of the devil, the shaitan. So we don't call a person, after we call a person who eats with their left hand, we don't call him shaitan. We don't say the person who eats with their left hand is a devil now. Right? That's not the case. But it says, mutashabbihun, he's resembled the shaitan with that action. With that action by eating with the left hand, he's resembled the shaitan. That's the first one. He says, وَمِنْ آدَابِ الْأَكْلِ, or those are the first two, eating and drinking with the right hand, and not eating and drinking with the left. Then he says, وَمِنْ آدَابِ الْأَكْلِ أَنْ يُسَمِّيَ فِي أَوَّلِهِ, to say Bismillah, before we eat. To say Bismillah before we eat. How do we know this? Kama fil hadith, as it came in the hadith of the Prophet ﷺ, and he was teaching. In this case, he's teaching now. He's teaching a young boy. And he called him, Ya ghulam, Ya ghulam, O young boy, Samillah. He told him three things in this hadith. Firstly, he said, O young man, Samillah, as they were eating. Say Bismillah. Say Bismillah. And then he said, وَكُلْ بِيَمِينِكَ, and eat with your right hand. And eat with your right hand. And then the third thing he told him, he said, وَكُلْ مِمَّا يَلِيكَ, and eat from the plate. Eat from the plate. Whatever's on the plate, eat which is closest to you on the plate. Eat which is closest to you on the plate. Meaning, it's possible we all, maybe 5 or 6 people, eat from one big plate, possibly. So the person is to eat from the area that is in front of him and not reach across the plate and grab the food from in front of another person. Kida. Right? Or kul mimma yalik, and eat what is in front of you. Eat what is in front of you. And that hadith is in Sahih Bukhari and Sahih Muslim. That a person, he told the young boy to say Bismillah firstly, to eat with his right hand, and to eat what is in front of him. So Shaykh Abdul Razak says, وَأَنْ يَحْمَدَ اللَّهَ جَلَّ وَعَلَى فِي آخِرِهِ عَلَى مَا تَفَضَّلَ بِهِ وَمَنَّ. And that after we finish eating, that we praise Allah. Say, Alhamdulillah. All praise for Allah who blessed us with the food that we ate. As the Prophet ﷺ said, إِنَّ اللَّهَ لَيَرْضَى عَنِ الْعَبْدِ أَنْ يَأْكُلَ الْأَكْلَ فَيَحْمَدُهُ عَلَيْهَا. As the Prophet ﷺ said in the hadith, which is in Sahih Muslim, that indeed Allah is pleased with the person. Allah is pleased with the slave that after he eats something, he praises Allah. That he says, Alhamdulillah, after he eats something. And then the Prophet ﷺ said, Oh, yashraba sharba fayahmadahu alayha. Oh, that the person, Allah is pleased with the person that if he drinks something, that he praises Allah after he's finished drinking. Alhamdulillah. He says, Alhamdulillah, after he finishes his drink. And these are some of the hadith. These are some of the hadith related to eating and drinking, the table manners of the Muslim. That we eat with the right hand or drink with the right hand, that we say Bismillah, and that we eat which is closest to us on the plate, and that after the food or the drink, that we praise Allah, as the Prophet ﷺ said, that Allah is pleased with the person who praises Allah after he eats something, and he is pleased with the person who praises Allah after he drinks something. And that hadith is in Sahih Muslim, and Anas radiallahu anhu, Anas ibn Malik. طيب, that was, or those 3, 4, 5, and 6. And he goes on, number 7. قال رحمه الله. He says in the text, والحمد بعد العطاس والتشميت العاطس إذا حمد الله. Next, he says, from the basic adab, the manners, is that a person praises Allah Jalla wa Ala after sneezing. Alhamdu ba'd al-utas. To praise Allah, alhamdulillah, after sneezing. After sneezing. Wa tashmeet al-atis idha hamid Allah. And to make tashmeet, which he's going to explain, of the person who sneezed, if they say alhamdulillah. If the person who sneezes says alhamdulillah, then the people who hear him, the people who hear the person say alhamdulillah, they have a response, as it comes in the hadith. عن أبي هريرة رضي الله عنه عن النبي عليه الصلاة والسلام قال, that the Prophet عليه الصلاة والسلام said, إن الله يحب العطاس, that Allah loves the sneezing of a person. إن الله يحب العطاس, that Allah loves when a person sneezes. ويكره التثاؤب, and Allah dislikes or hates the yawning. Allah dislikes or hates the yawning when a person yawns. فإذا عطس فحمد الله فحق على كل مسلم سمعه أن يشمته. So if a person sneezes, the Prophet ﷺ said, if a person sneezes and he says alhamdulillah, from his right, the right of the person who said alhamdulillah is that the Muslim who hears him, they respond and they say yarhamakallah, yarhamakallah. They say alhamdulillah, all praises for Allah, and the people who hear him, they respond and they say, may Allah have mercy on you. They respond with the dua, a prayer that Allah has mercy on the person who sneezes. And this is for the sneezing. Then the Prophet ﷺ said, وَأَمَّا التَّثَاؤُبُ, as far as yawning goes, the yawn. And this hadith is in Sahih al-Bukhari. Hadith in Sahih al-Bukhari. The Prophet ﷺ said, وَأَمَّا التَّثَاؤُبُ, as far as yawning is concerned, فَإِنَّمَا هُوَ مِنَ الشَّيْطَانِ, that yawning is from the devil, it's from the shaitan. Yawning is considered to be from the shaitan. فَلْيَرُدَّهُ مَا اسْتَطَاعَ, so a person should suppress and hold back his yawning to the best of their ability. Suppress the yawning to the best of their ability. Then the Prophet ﷺ said, فَإِذَا قَالَهَا, if a person makes a noise while yawning, like it happens sometimes. Sometimes people might scream, oh, right? If a person, فَإِذَا قَالَهَا, if a person makes this noise while yawning, the Prophet ﷺ said, ضَحِكَ مِنْهُ الشَّيْطَانِ, that the shaitan laughs at him. The shaitan, the devil, laughs at a person who makes that type of sound when they're yawning. And this hadith is in Sahih al-Bukhari. طيب. Ibn Qayyim rahimahullah, he mentioned a few benefits of why a person praises Allah after yawning. He said a person قد حصل له بالعطاس نعمة ومنفعة بخروج الأبخرة المحتقنة في دماغه, that when a person sneezes, that it forces that extra dust or whatever that may reach his brain, it forces it out of the body. He says that dust or that dirt or whatever it is, that if it were to remain in the body, it could cause sickness. If it were to remain, if that dust that comes out, as we might, sometimes we can see it when a person sneezes in this daylight, or sometimes you can see it, whatever comes out. If that were to remain in the body, التي لو بقيت فيه أحدثت له أدواء, that it might cause some type of sickness if it remained in the body. So it's a ni'mah, it's a blessing from Allah Jalla wa Ala that a person can even sneeze and remove that stuff out of the body. He says, and for this reason, وَلِهَذَا شُرِعَ لَهُ Alhamdulillah ala hadhihi ni'mah. So it is legislated in Islam that a person praises Allah for this blessing of being able to sneeze by itself is a ni'mah, a blessing in itself. How is that? مع بقاء أعضائه على تآمه على التئامه وهيئتها التئامها وهيئتها بعد هذه الزلزلة التي حصلت للبدن. After this strong shaking of the body during a sneeze, as some sneezes are stronger, could be harder than others, depending, right? The body shakes. It's a severe shake of the body, and the body remains intact. It's not like a person loses a limb or they go brain dead off of a sneeze, or that's not normal. A person sneezes, the body remains intact. Something is removed from the body that if it stayed in, it could have caused harm to the body. He said all of this is a blessing from Allah. So it's appropriate that a person praises Allah Jalla wa Ala after sneezing by saying Alhamdulillah. Tayyib. He says then, Shaykh Abdul Razak, he says, so look at the completeness and the beauty of Al-Islam. Just in the sneezing by itself shows the beauty and the completeness of the religion. How? He says, the person who sneezes, he does what? Al-Atisu, the person who sneezes, Yahmadullah. He praises Allah, Alhamdulillah. This is the chain of events when a person sneezes. وَمَنْ يَسْمَعُهُ يَدْعُ لَهُ بِالرَّحْمَةِ. Whoever hears him say Alhamdulillah, they respond by making dua for that person, that Allah have mercy on him. Right? The person sneezes, the body shakes, some filth is removed from the body, they praise Allah, Alhamdulillah. Whoever hears him responds, Yarhamakallah, may Allah have mercy on you. And what does the person do? He responds back with another dua for those people who made dua for him. ثم هو يبادل الدعاء بالدعاء فيدعو لمن شمته بالهداية وصلاح الحال. So he responds, يهديكم الله. He responds to the people who prayed for him that Allah have mercy on. He responds with, or she responds with, may Allah guide you all. May Allah guide you to the straight path, and may He correct any of your affairs. May He correct any of your affairs. He says, and this shows the beauty of the religion, and it shows that how, even if we're mad at a person, that even if we're mad, if we're not getting along, we have a problem with a person, that the Prophet ﷺ mentioned this in another hadith as being from the rights of a Muslim upon every Muslim. That the right Muslims have, in one hadith it says, حَقُ الْمُسْلِمْ عَلَى Muslim sitta. That every Muslim on another Muslim, there's 6 rights that every Muslim has upon another Muslim. And from those rights, the Prophet ﷺ said, if the person sneezes and he says Alhamdulillah, and that's a condition in the hadith, that if the person says Alhamdulillah, then the response is Yarhamakallah. If a person doesn't say Alhamdulillah, then there's no response. And at that point, everything that we just said is missed. Meaning that there's no praise for Allah, for the blessing of being able to sneeze. There's no dua from the other people who hear him for Allah's mercy, and he doesn't make dua for them for guidance and for Allah to correct their affairs. So it's a lot that is missed out by not practicing that sunnah of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. Tayyib. He moves on to number 8. Shaykh bin Baz rahimahullah. He says, وَعِيَادُ الْمَرِيضِ وَعِيَادَةُ الْمَرِيضِ عِيَادَةُ الْمَرِيضِ. And visiting the sick. Visiting the sick. Which is another sunnah of the Prophet ﷺ that we've been taught to visit the sick. To visit the sick. وَهُوَ حَقٌّ لِلْمَرِيضِ عَلَى إِخْوَانِهِ. And this is from the rights that a sick person has. It's his right. As the Prophet ﷺ mentioned in that other hadith also, from the 6 rights of every Muslim upon one another, is that if he falls sick, that the person visits him. Our problem is we don't even want people to know where we live, so we can't even visit one another a lot of times, because if you bring somebody to the house that I don't know, we upset about that, so we can't practice this sunnah. Allah musta'an. Why you bring them to the house? Allah musta'an. If we live by those rules of the street or whatever it is, maybe we were raised like whatever it is, and it conflicts with the revelation, the Quran and the Sunnah of the Prophet ﷺ, then we can't hold on to that. We have to replace that with what is better. Revelation is better, as the revelation is from Allah Jalla wa'ala. Allah knows what is best for His servants. So the Prophet ﷺ said it's a haqq, it's a right of every Muslim that if he falls sick that you go visit him. And that comes in another hadith. So Shaykh Abdul Razak says, وَتُسْتَغَلَّ عِيَادَتُهُ بِالدُّعَى لَهُ وَالشِّفَاء وَالْعَافِيَةِ. That a person should busy their time when they visit a person that is sick, they should busy their time with dua, making dua for him, that Allah cures them and heals them and makes them better, and mentioning things. He says, وَتَسْلِيَتِهِ بِمَا يُحَرِّكُ فِيهِ النَّشَاطِ, and mentioning things that might make the person feel, we say, raise his spirits or make him feel a little better. And mention some things that will give him a good outlook, make him optimistic, everything will be all right, inshallah, make the dua for him. If we don't know the dua, then it's a dua that the Prophet ﷺ would say when he went to visit people, that we should say, that we should try to use those things to the best of our ability, as that is following the Sunnah of the Prophet ﷺ, implementing the hadith, not just knowing what the books that they're in, and knowing if they're authentic or not, but using them, using the hadith, using the guidance of the Prophet ﷺ. Tayyib. And he didn't go too deep in with the visiting the sick. But this is an issue is a problem that we have. We don't know where we live. We don't know where brothers live. We pray together every day sometimes, and we never know. We never know where a person lives until the janazah. And maybe we don't even find out then. We just meet up at the masjid where the janazah is. Tayyib. And after that, he speaks about the janazah. Waqala, the next adab, and this will be number 9. This will be number 9. He says, وَاتِّبَاعُ الْجَنَائِزِ لِلصَّلَاةِ وَالدَّفْنِ. Following the janazah for the prayer and for the burial. For the prayer and for the burial for the person who has the ability to do so. And this is also mentioned in that other hadith where the Prophet ﷺ said, the rights of every Muslim upon another Muslim, there are 6 rights. And one of them was following the janazah, one of those rights. So Shaykh Abdul Razak says, وَهُوَ حَقٌّ مِنْ حُقُوقِ الْمُسْلِمِ عَلَى إِخْوَانِهِ. This is a right from the rights that every Muslim has upon their fellow Muslim. وَقَدْ رُتِّبَ عَلَيْهِ أُجُورٌ عَظِيمًا. And there's a major reward connected to following or praying the salat al-janazah, praying the prayer over the deceased, and the burial of the deceased. It's a major benefit. قال صلى الله عليه وسلم. And this hadith is in Sahih al-Bukhari. This hadith is in Sahih al-Bukhari. قال عليه الصلاة والسلام من شهد الجنازة حتى يصلي فله قيراط ومن شهد حتى تدفن كان له قيراطان. قيل وما القيراطان؟ قال مثل الجبلين العظيمين. This hadith is in Sahih al-Bukhari, showing that if we have the ability, we should pray the janazah prayer. We should pray the janazah prayer, and if we have the ability, we should go to the burial also, to bury the believers. The Prophet ﷺ said, whoever attends the janazah hatta yusalli, until the prayer, and he prays this janazah salat, the salat al-janazah, he says, falahu qirat. Then his reward is what the Prophet ﷺ said, he described as qirat. And then he's going to explain what qirat is. He says, وَمَنْ شَهِدَ حَتَّى تُدْفَنَ كَانَ لَهُ قِيرَطَانِ. And whoever follows the janazah, the deceased, until they're buried, they get qiratan, which is two qirat. So it was asked, they asked the Prophet ﷺ, قِيلَ وَمَا الْقِيرَطَانِ? What are those qiratan? قَالَ مِثْلُ الْجَبَلَيْنِ الْعَظِيمَيْنِ. The reward for following the janazah, for praying the salat al-janazah and burying the person, and following to the burial, is the reward, the Prophet ﷺ said, of two huge great mountains. The reward is two huge great mountains. Qiratan, that's if the person prays the Salatul Janazah and they go to the burial. Qiratan. So if they only did the prayer, then qirat, as the Prophet ﷺ said. He said, whoever prays, hatta yusalliya, he said, falahu qirat, which will be one mountain, one huge mountain, equal to the reward. His reward will be that, mithlu. It will be equal to one huge mountain if they prayed the prayer alone. And if they went and they prayed and they followed all the way until the person was buried, then they will get the reward equal to two huge mountains. طيب. After that, he moves on to number 10. قال رحمه الله شيخ بن باز والآداب الشرعية عند دخول المسجد أو المنزل والخروج منهما. He mentions now some of the manners of entering the masjid, leaving the masjid, and entering a person when they enter the house. What should they do when they enter into their own houses? Or when we exit our houses, what should we do? So we have entering and exiting the masjid, and entering the home and exiting the home. طيب. It says, فَالْمَسْجِدُ لِدُخُولِهِ أَدَابٍ. There are many different mannerisms connected to entering the masjid and exiting the masjid. وَمِنْهَا, from those things, أَنْ يُقَدِّمَ رِجْلَهُ الْيُمْنَى عِنْدَ الدُّخُولِ. That a person, when they enter into the masjid, that they step inside of the masjid using their right foot. That the right foot should enter into the masjid first, not the left foot. That the right foot should enter into the masjid first. وَالْيُسْرَى عِنْدَ الْخُرُوجِ. And that when a person leaves the masjid, that they should exit the masjid, and they should put their left foot outside of the masjid first. And this comes from an action of the Prophet ﷺ, that he would love to begin things with his right side. As we know in the wudu, we begin with the right side. And those things that are honorable things should be done with the right hand. So basically the entering of the masjid, which is a safe haven, a place of sakina, tranquility and worship, this inside of the masjid is better than outside of the masjid. So the entering into the masjid is done with the right foot. Outside of the masjid is not a better place as far as evil is concerned. There's less evil inside of the masjid, and there's more evil on the outside of the masjid. So those places that are a higher level or more honorable should be entered in with the right foot. And since there's more evil on the outside, it is exited with the left foot, like this. As the Prophet ﷺ would love to begin things with his right side. طيب. Also, وَأَنْ يَكُونَ الدُّخُولُ بِالتَّسْمِيَةِ وَالْخُرُوجُ بِالتَّسْمِيَةِ. And that when a person enters the masjid, that they say Bismillah. And when they exit the masjid, that they also say Bismillah. وَيَقُولُ عِنْدَ دُخُولِهِ وَالْخُرُوجِهِ. In the dua, he says the dua, that a person says the dua for entering the masjid. As there's a dua for entering the masjid, there's also a dua for exiting the masjid. Alhamdulillah. As the Prophet ﷺ left us with everything that a person needs to worship Allah Jalla wa Ala in order to gain or try to gain their spot in the paradise. As the person makes the dua, Bismillah wa salatu wa salamu ala Rasulillah. That he says that when he enters the masjid, he says Bismillah, and then he sends salam on the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. وفي دخوله, and also when he enters, وَيَسْأَلُ اللَّهَ أَنْ يَفْتَحَ لَهُ أَبْوَابَ الرَّحْمَةِ. That we ask Allah to open up the doors of mercy, to open up his doors of mercy when we enter into the masjid. And when we leave out, we ask him to open up his doors of fadl, that he gives us from his greatness, he gives us. As this is in the hadith of Abi Humayd, وعن أبي أسيد قال رسول الله صلى الله عليه وسلم. The Prophet صلى الله عليه وسلم said, and this hadith is in Sahih Muslim, he said عليه الصلاة والسلام, إذا دخل أحدكم المسجد, إِذَا دَخَلَ أَحَدُكُمَ الْمَسْجِدَ. If one of you enters the masjid, فَلْيَقُلْ, then he should say, they ought to say, اللهم افتح لي أبواب رحمتك. They make the dua, oh Allah, open up the doors of mercy. Open up for me your doors of mercy. As we're seeking Allah's mercy when we enter the masjid. Open up your doors of mercy for me. And this is a dua. He says, sallallahu alayhi wa sallam. And then he said on the other half of the hadith, وَإِذَا خَرَجَ فَلْيَقُلْ. And if a person leaves, that he says, Allahumma inni as'aluka min fadlik. Oh Allah, I ask you to give me from your virtue or your virtue, something virtuous. When we're leaving the masjid. طيب. And these are two short du'as that they have some, there are many of different du'as for entering the masjid and leaving the masjid. He's just mentioning a few of them. He says also, and every time we enter the masjid, وفي كل من الدخول والخروج تشرع الاستعاذة من الشيطان. Every time we enter and exit the masjid, it's legislated that we seek Allah's protection from the shaitan, from the devil. That we should seek Allah's protection from the shaitan when we enter the masjid and when we exit the masjid. Amma in the dukhul, when we enter the masjid, and this is just an extension of the dua that we make when we enter the masjid. First we say Bismillah wa salatu wa salam ala Rasulullah. Say Bismillah, we ask Allah to send salam on the Prophet sallallahu alayhi wa sallam. Then we ask Allah when we come in the masjid, Allahumma aftah li abwab rahmatik. That we ask Allah to open up His doors of mercy for us. And then we seek refuge from the shaitan also when we come in the masjid. But the Prophet sallallahu alayhi wa sallam said, A'udhu billahi al-azim wa biwajhihi al-kareem wa sultanihi al-qadeem min al-shaitan al-rajim. I say, oh Allah, I seek your protection. Oh Allah, the great, the supreme, I seek your protection. Wa biwajhihi al-kareem, and by your noble face, and by your eternal authority, sultanihi al-qadeem, you seek Allah's protections, min al-shaitan al-rajim, from the accursed shaitan. That all of these things are when we first step into the masjid. And this gives us, if we're mindful, we're paying attention, then our entrance into the masjid is a little different. If we're paying attention and we're using the sunnah of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, we might come in sometimes and we miss out on the reward of following the sunnah of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam when entering the masjid. As he would enter with the right foot, say Bismillah, send salam on the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, ask Allah, make a dua that Allah opens up the doors of mercy, and then seek protection from the shaitan. All of this entering into the masjid, on the entrance. He says, وَعِنْدَ الدُّخُولِ وَعِنْدَ الْخُرُوجِ فَمِنَ السُنَّةِ. And from the sunnah of the Prophet ﷺ, when a person leaves or exits the masjid, أَنْ يَقُولَ اللَّهُمَّ أَعْصِمْنِي مِنَ الشَّيْطَانِ. That a person says, oh Allah, when we're leaving the masjid, as we know when we leave the masjid, we know when we leave the masjid, the tons of evil, the evil that we have to face when we leave the masjid. So it's important that we make the dua, oh Allah, protect me from the shaitan. I seek your protection from the shaitan. In the world we live in now, we need these dua. We need to make these dua. That Allah protect us. So Shaykh Abdul Razak says, وَذَلِكَ أَنَّ الشَّيْطَانَ حَرِيصٌ عَلَى الْمَرْءِ عِنْدَ دُخُولِهِ الْمَسْجِدَ السلام ورحمة الله حتى يفوت عليه حسن العبادة. That the shaitan is haris, he's diligent in trying to distract the person when they enter the masjid from perfecting their worship. When a person enters the masjid, the shaitan wants to distract the person, the devil wants to distract the person from perfecting their worship. So this dua, when entering the masjid, we ask Allah Jalla wa Ala to protect us from the shaitan so that we can perfect our worship, which is the purpose of our creation. He says also, وَعِنْدَ الْخُرُوجِ مِنَ الْمَسْجِدِ حَتَّى يَحْرِمَهُ مِنْ أَثَرِ الْإِبَادَةِ. And he's also diligent on a person, trying to distract the person when we leave the masjid, so that we're not affected by our worship. As he wants to distract us when we come in from perfecting the worship, and if Allah gives us the tawfiq and blesses us to be able to perfect our worship, He wants to remove the effect that the worship has on us when we leave out. So he tries to distract us when we leave out of the masjid by maybe whispering to him, as he says, فَيَجُرُّهُ إِلَى مَكَانٍ مُحَرَّمٍ. Maybe entices a person to go to somewhere that he shouldn't be, or doing something that he shouldn't do. He says, just like the Prophet ﷺ said. The Prophet ﷺ said, this hadith is collected by Imam Ahmed wa Nasa'i. Shaykh al-Albani says it's sahih, rahimahullah, where the Prophet ﷺ said, إِنَّ الشَّيْطَانَ قَعَدَ لِإِبْنِ آدَمْ بِأَطْرُقِهِ. That the shaitan is waiting. He sits on the pathways for, the shaitan sits on the pathways for the human being, for Ibn Adam, for the people. He sits on the pathways in order to distract them from the khair. He says, وَمِن ذَلِكُمْ. And from those pathways, طريق المسجد دخول وخروج, is the tariq that a person, the path that a person takes to the masjid, that the shaitan sits on the path in order to distract the person from when they enter the masjid, from perfecting their worship, and when they leave out of the masjid, from being affected by that worship, that the shaitan is waiting. As Allah said in the Quran that لما قضي الأمر, when the issue comes up, the shaitan will say that Allah promised you a promise and I promised you something. But Allah was true in his promise and I lied. So don't blame me, blame yourself. So as-salamu alaykum. So the shaitan waits, the devil, he waits to distract us. And therefore we have a dua. We have a dua for entering the masjid. We have a dua for exiting the masjid, seeking Allah's protection from the shaitan. He says, moving on, وَكَذَلِكَ الْمَنْزِلُ لِدُخُولِهِ آدَابٌ وَلِلْخُرُوجِ مِنْهُ آدَابٌ. And also entering and exiting the house. Entering and exiting our houses. فَإِذَا دَخَلَ بَيْتَهُ يُسَمِّي وَيُسَلِّمْ. So if a person enters into their house, they should what? They should say Bismillah and give salam to the people in the house. فَإِنَّهُ بَرَكَةٌ عَلَيْهِ وَعَلَى أَهْلِ بَيْتِهِ وَوِقَايَةٌ مِنَ الشَّيْطَانِ. As this is a blessing for the person who gives the salam when he enters the house, and for the people in the house, and it's also a protection from the devil, from the shaitan. He says also a person enters the house وَيَتَحَلَّى بِالْأَخْلَاقِ الْفَاضِلَةِ فِي تَعَامُلِهِ مَعَ أَهْلِهِ وَوَلَدِهِ فِي بَيْتِهِ. And that a person deals with their family, they deal with their family members with good manners and good dealings when they're inside of the house. There's a lot of the Sahaba, they will come and ask Aisha radiallahu anha, they will ask her about the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam inside of the house, because they will see him outside of the house. But Aisha, the wife of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam radiallahu anha, she lived with him inside of the house, so she got a chance to see things that some of them, that the Sahaba, that the men didn't get a chance to see. Which means the women, they have more information on a person. The wives have more information on how a man is inside of his house with his family. So the Prophet ﷺ said, explaining the importance of using these ahadith. It's important hadith. He says, sallallahu alayhi wa sallam, and this hadith is in Sahih Muslim, akhrajahu Muslim, an Jabir. The Prophet sallallahu alayhi wa sallam said, sallallahu alayhi wa sallam says, إِذَا دَخَلَ الرَّجُلُ بَيْتَهُ فَذَكَرَ اللَّهَ عِنْدَ دُخُولِهِ وَعِنْدَ طَعَامِهِ قَالَ الشَّيْطَانُ لَا مَبِيتَ لَكُمْ وَلَا عَشَاء. The Prophet ﷺ said, if a man enters into his house and he remembers Allah when he enters the house, فَذَكَرَ اللَّهَ عِنْدَ دُخُولِهِ, he remembers Allah when he enters the house, Bismillah. وَعِنْدَ طَعَامِهِ, and when he eats, when they eat, they remember Allah, Bismillah. The shaitan says to his followers, لَا مَبِيتَ لَكُمْ, there's no place for y'all to stay here. I can't stay here. That's what shaitan says to his followers. وَلَا عَشَاء, and there's no food for you here, because they said Bismillah before they started to eat, at the beginning of the meal. طيب. Then the Prophet ﷺ said after that, he said, وَإِذَا دَخَلَ فَلَمْ يَذْكُرِ اللَّهَ عِنْدَ دُخُولِهِ قَالَ الشَّيْطَانُ أَدْرَكْتُمْ الْمَبِيتِ. He said, And if a man enters into his house and he doesn't mention Allah, he doesn't mention Allah's name, لم يذكر الله عند دخوله, he doesn't mention Allah, قال الشيطان, Shaitan says to his followers, أدركتم المبيت, you have somewhere to stay tonight. Allah Ustad. Then the Prophet ﷺ said, وَإِذَا لَمْ يَذْكُرِ اللَّهِ عِنْدَ طَعَامِهِ قَالَ أَدْرَكْتُمْ الْمَبِيتِ وَالْعَشَاءِ. He said, and if a person doesn't mention Allah's name when they go to eat, the shaitan, قَالَ, he says to his followers, أَدْرَكْتُمْ الْمَبِيتِ وَالْعَشَاءِ. There's a place for you here to sleep and there's food for you here. All for not mentioning Allah's name. That hadith is in Sahih Muslim. عن جابر بن عبد الله رضي الله عنه, for not mentioning and eating also, that the shaitan reports to his followers, if we mention Allah's name when we enter the house and when we eat, that he tells them there's no food for you here and there's nowhere for you to stay. You can't stay here tonight. And if we don't mention Allah's name when we eat, when we enter the house, that he tells his followers, you can stay here, there's a place for you to stay here. And if we don't mention Allah's name when we eat, that he says there's also food for you here. He tells his followers there's food for them, for the followers. طيب. In another hadith, the Prophet ﷺ says, وَقَالَ إِذَا دَخَلْتَ عَلَى أَهْلِكَ فَسَلِّمْ يَكُونُ بَرَكَةً عَلَيْكَ وَعَلَى أَهْلِ بَيْتِكَ. He said, if you enter upon your families, فَسَلِّمْ, give the salam. Give the salam, assalamu alaikum. He says, why? يَكُونُ بَرَكَةً عَلَيْكَ وَعَلَى أَهْلِ بَيْتِكَ. He said, this will be a blessing for you and for the people of the house, the household. This will be a blessing for you and for the people in the house. فَإِذَا خَرَجَ وَإِذَا خَرَجَ. And if we leave the house, there's a dua for leaving the house. As the Prophet ﷺ did not leave us to guess anything, as he laid everything out. But it's upon us to follow and implement. إِذَا خَرَجَ يُسَمِّي. The dua when we leave the house is to say, Bismillah, توكلت على الله ولا حول ولا قوة إلا بالله. That we say Bismillah, that we say, I rely, I put all of my trust in Allah Jalla wa Ala. That we say there is no might or power except by Allah Jalla wa Ala. That when we leave the house, this is one dua. There he brings the extension of the dua. وَيَدْعُ اللَّهَ أَنْ يُعِيذَهُ. And then a person makes dua that Allah protect them. Allahumma a'udhu bik an adilla aw udalla. That he says, oh Allah, I ask you to protect me. I seek your protection from misguiding others, or that I myself am misguided. Oh azilla or uzalla. Or that I cause someone to make a mistake, or that I make a mistake. This is the dua when we leave the house. Right? Oh Allah, I ask you to protect me from misguiding someone, or that I become misguided, or that I cause someone to make a mistake, or that I make a mistake. Or that someone oppresses me, or I oppress someone else. Or ajhala or yujhala, or that I behave foolishly towards a person, that I disrespect or behave inappropriately towards someone, or someone behaves like that towards me. Or ajhala or yujhala alayya. This hadith, أخرجه أحمد وأبو داود والترمذي والنسائي عن سلمة. And Shaykh al-Albani said it's sahih, that this dua, when we leave the house, that place, that should be a place of sakina, tranquility and peace, that when we leave out into the dunya, which there's a lot of evil, that we make these adiyah, these du'as for Allah's protection. And that's the event. We'll stop there till next week. As there are a few more, inshallah. We'll stop there till next week, as he picks up next week with in the safar, the manners when traveling. When we travel, when we go on trips, when we travel, when we consider travelers, how do we behave in some of the mannerisms of the traveler. وصلى الله وسلم وبارك على نبينا محمد وعلى آله وصحبه وسلم.